aircrafts and ships and whatnot that they put in harm's way to see what the reaction would be of an atomic blast. And I'm sure the atomic testing was conducted predominantly in case we had to be prepared in using atomic warfare to fight alien influence, and they needed a cover story, so this was the Russians and the Cold War and everything was just a perfect cover story. Although it later became more than a cover story, as we all know. These particular photographs also show small dots and dashes, as I would say, and all of them have been confirmed. Now this black system here in the atomic cloud is actually time being ripped up, of course the atmosphere and the clouds and everything, and then time being warped by the initial blast itself, and that's by neutrinos going through and ionizing space, ionizing the atmosphere and whatnot, but exceeding the speed of light, so you produce an antimatter background and you get total blackness. And of course here we have another UFO similar to these here. But once again, we haven't been told the truth on any of this. And right here, also in this picture, in the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, this is of Nagasaki. Down at the bottom, we see the characteristic human face, which is typical of all A-bomb explosions over populated areas. You will always find a human face at the bottom of the mushroom cloud. Now, nobody really knows if this is just by coincidence or the makeup of the cloud or whatever. But these little dots and dashes, these white dots and dashes, are receding at better than 30,000 miles per hour, and they're UFOs leaving the scene. Japan was infested with them. Their Navy had counted better part of 2 million of them toward the closing end of World War II. Once again, it's all part of an alien attack of planet Earth. It's been going on steadily since World War II era. It's still going on, only now is subverted into large groups of human beings being actually abducted and implanted, and that's according to the Roper report, which is part of the Remington Rand Corporation, who did the reporting, the Bigelow Holding Company. Now they're in a third generation report, and of that third generation report that was sent out to all the clinical psychologists in the United States, 110,000 of them, stated basically women are being raped by aliens, and I know as fantastic as that sounds, it's backed up by John Mack, Harold Wire, who is an MD as well as a clinical person. John Mack is the most famous, but there's some 90 concerned psychiatric scientists who are trying to form an organization to prevent secrecy on the subject, because they have mentioned this as nothing but government-sponsored rape. 99.3% are women, 0.7% are men that are abducted, implanted. So it's predominantly a female type of monitoring system. So once again, the alien agenda is to disturb the natural progress of the human race, and to alien agenda means. And of course, there's another thing to mention: any outer space alien, regardless of who they are, how benevolent or how evil they are, they're a biological hazard, because we have no defense against their germs. Absolutely none. In fact, they can kill us just by being around. I developed something like jungle rot. I still got it on my feet and on my back, and because of the Dulce, New Mexico thing, I get free hospitalization for the rest of my life. I'm a good guinea pig, I guess. But theoretically, that's from being around inside that cave at that particular time. That's the first time I've told any of you people that, but that's basically what it's all about. Different time here, I think we're doing all right. Well, we talked about the dumb bases and the black projects predominantly, and the alien agenda. I would like to stick to another subject. It's called Strategic Defense Initiative. Of course, this could very easily be, as mentioned by my late friend Ronald E. Rummel, who was murdered, incidentally, by the three people conspired to kill him. One person did the killing. One was a NSA officer, and one was an alcohol, tobacco, and firearms officer. Both are in custody as we speak. The third gentleman is fighting extradition. He's in Czechoslovakia. Most likely able to successfully fight extradition because they don't follow the U.S. law very well. Anyway, the Strategic Defense Initiative is probably, instead of preventing incoming missiles, although they're now that most nations are favored and otherwise have nuclear missile technology, is probably some form of outer space defense against outer space attack, and it's pretty primitive indeed. But it's better than nothing. And the second part of my talk will be aliens and the alien agenda. I've already touched on that. Old alien bases. And like I said, Bikini Island, according to what was studied after the A-bomb blast, that some of the caves that were infested with out-of-place artifacts dealing with UFOs and other kinds of paraphernalia had rock forming around them, so they had been basically an alien junkyard in shallow seas for probably the better part of 10,000 years. So they've been around. That you might call an old alien base. Dulce, New Mexico is another old alien base, or kind of a botryoidal or clear agate had formed over some of the parts laying on the floor of the existing base. And it takes an extremely long period of time, for geologically speaking, for this to form. The aliens have probably been here the better part of at least 500,000 and maybe as much as several million years, although I have artifacts here which show artifacts that like a small turbine-looking device sitting in 220 million year old fossil coral, and I also have alien metals which are present in other kinds of rock formations, including a piece of petrified wood where an insect had basically burrowed a hole around one of its limbs, and then something had literally, like a laser, had literally sliced through it, but the cambium or the actual layers of the wood had bent as the beam burned its way through it. I've got that in here too, as well as an original piece of instantly petrified, looks like a garlic root that we found in and around Area 51. And this particular piece of garlic type plant was instantly petrified. It contains the same exact chemical structure of the quartz crystal. The quartz crystal only grows in a certain left-handed crystal pattern, and that same pattern is extant on fossil, instantly petrified or fossilized plant life of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's identical, chemically identical. So, anyway, the next part of this, the second part of the talk, are treaties. Basically, there were 4 distinct treaties made through the United States government from the alien encounter. The first one was in 1944, the second one was 1954, third one was 1962, and the fourth one was 1979. I'll go backwards. The 1979 treaty was a total violation of, incidentally, at Dulce, New Mexico, where I got badly hurt. 66 Secret Service and Delta Force people lost their lives, 22 of which were on loan from other countries, Israel, Germany, Norway, South Africa, if I remember. I was the only geological engineer down there to analyze the situation. The government almost basically lied to us. They kind of said that alien presence might be there, but they didn't tell us that they knew that there was an alien base and that they'd already attempted to make contact. And of course, this was disturbing indeed. In fact, a couple of the engineers who managed to survive put the project under duress. Another part of the talk are the intelligence community. The Nazi group, the World War II Nazi or Hitlerian group, the Fatherland Intelligence Agency, trained our CIA, our OSS, which became our CIA, and other intelligence communities predominantly, and are still being employed today as we, in quote, the federal government today trains Bosnian troops on American soil, and from what I understand, that's totally illegal, and that's another topic.